What is going on, everybody? Welcome into the Daily Wolves courtside. Today I'm joined here by my friend Tim Garrison. Tim, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Matt. I appreciate you having me on this snowy Sunday morning. We
Absolutely.
are looking at trade season. How we feeling?
Dude, it is one of my favorite times. I shouldn't say favorite time, but one of my favorite times just as an NBA fan. And we have one of the more aggressive GMs in basketball. So how can you not be excited for a time like this to come?
Absolutely. It kind of feels like we're just in this waiting game for the past couple weeks. You had the Giannis news come out. We're kind of waiting for the trade season to pick up. We had Trae Young get dealt in early January, and it's been crickets until last night, when the Kings, Bulls, and the Cavaliers make the first big splash of the trade. Well, second big splash of the trade season, sending DeAndre Hunter out to the Kings. And the Cavaliers cut a lot of salary. They get Dennis Schroeder and Keon Ellis, which removes a piece off the board. And I think you and I were talking yesterday. We just wanted to get on because Keon was one of the targets. We wanted to talk about what's out there heading into deadline week, what's realistic, and all the directions we could potentially take here. So just wanted to kind of start off. There's a couple things I wanted to go over. First off, like where do we sit? Our Timberwolves cap situation. The Timberwolves are just below the second apron. We have 3.56 million in space under the second apron deadline. Second apron threshold. So why that second apron matters is because of a rule where you cannot be in the second apron for 3 years out of 5. And if you do, you start getting your picks frozen 7 years out. The Timberwolves are going to want to avoid that as much as possible and try to reset that clock so they don't cross into that threshold and they start getting picks frozen. So when you hear people talking about the second apron, that is going to be essentially our salary cap limit, probably for the next couple of years. Now, there's a couple things we can do. It's not much space, but before we dive into trade targets, I just wanted to go over a couple or two items, two exceptions available to the Timberwolves. So the Wolves let Nickeil Alexander-Walker go, and in that move created a trade exception. Now, I've seen a lot of people say, oh, we can use the trade exception to take back more salary, but because we're a first apron team, we can use that to absorb a salary. So say Keon Ellis was still on the board, we could absorb his 2.2 NBA minimum contract. But you cannot use a trade exception in the first apron as a way to extend salary as a salary match. So, for example, in a Malik Monk trade, Rob Dillingham and Mike Conley make $17.3 million. You cannot use that trade exception to get to the $18.8 million in salary match for Malik Monk. It's not a legal trade. You can't do that. The other exception the Timberwolves have is their taxpayer exception. This is essentially a mid-level. We did not use it this summer. So the Timberwolves have full access to their mid-level exception, which is about $5.865 million. So why is that relevant? It probably isn't. But that exception will allow us to go over the minimum to be able to sign a free agent. So where that could come into play would be, a big time buyout guy comes available. We can offer more than the minimum to go get that player. So those are the two exceptions. Just wanted to talk about that. I've gotten a lot of feedback on Twitter just saying, oh, we can use a trade exception. Well, we can't. Well, we can, but we can't to use it to match. So with that out of the way, just wanted to lay the groundwork as we head into this discussion, make sure we're on point, make sure that we cover those two bases. I just wanted to kick it off to you, and I wanted to hear your trade targets as we head into the week.
Yeah, so the Wolves, we've kind of like found ourselves in a different spot almost, and I feel like to a certain degree than we were like a week prior to the 5-game losing streak. Because prior to that, you had your trade talks of, oh, we might need a big guy, we need a bench scorer, but with the emergence of Johan, it really kind of takes the focus from maybe we need another big to okay, it looks like we need is a guard, whether it's a point guard, whether it's a scorer off the bench that can come off and take some of the load, some of the pressure off Nas, whoever it may be, Bones. So for me, right now, I think that my favorite trade target is one of the Bulls guards, and a lot of
Me.
people are but I am more in the Ayo Dosunmu realm of things. He's on a little bit of a cheaper deal. His contract is up this year, so that's what $7.5 million that we can just essentially have a trial run with if you must.
Mhm.
Versus Kobe White, you're kind of locked down through the 27-28 season unless you do move him. Something doesn't work out. So I guess first things first, I guess let's just kind of talk about Ayo. Like, what would it take to bring an Ayo Dosunmu type of player to Minnesota? Somebody who doesn't need the ball to be effective, somebody who can guard the positions 2 through 4 while being an oversized, stocky kind of
Mhm.
guard. So I guess where are you sitting on Ayo first off before we get into the money things? Do you think that he would fit with our team, or what's kind of your 2 cents on it?
Yeah. So Ayo is absolutely one of my favorite targets. He's having a mini breakout, and quite frankly, it's one of those guys that I think the Bulls would be fools to let go of. I think he's been buried behind a lot of guard play. You had Zach Levine before he got traded to the Kings. You have Giddy now that they invested a ton of assets and money, future money into. And then Kobe White is above him as well. I think Ayo Dosunmu, he is fallen as a defender, but he's also playing for a middling team in the Bulls. I think that defense is still in there, and it could come out in the right culture, especially when his role isn't necessarily go score as many points as possible and put up some film, because that's what he's doing right now in the Bulls, putting
Yeah.
up good film for the next contract. Um, I think that defender and team player is still in there. And I think it's a phenomenal target with upside too. I mean, he just scored 29 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds last night.
Yeah,
I mean,
efficiently too.
yeah, he's been pretty incredible. I think in terms of targets that are realistic with the contracts we have and maybe the assets, um, I think he's about the top end that we could get. He's ideal for that seventh man. He's kind of like a Na replacement, Nikhil Alexander
Yeah.
Walker replacement. Fairly similar. He's a combo guard. He's not really a point guard, but he can break the paint. He can use his gravity to create for his teammates. And he's been an elite shooter this year. So very long roundabout way of saying I think that is a perfect target. So we could probably get in. Should we start with Ayo? Go over what that would
Let's
look like?
let's do it. Let's get
Yeah.
to it.
Yeah. So let's see here. Right now, what we're looking at is the Timberwolves payroll for the next couple of years. We currently have 14 roster spots. This is 15, but this is accounting for this empty spot. Now, Ayo Dosunmu, you mentioned it. He's on a cheaper deal. He makes $7.5 million. That is a value. We're going to add him in here. Here's his 7.5 million. That is a value that we can comfortably salary match. I'm not sure how much the Bulls are going to value Rob Dillingham. So I think the linchpin of this deal is probably going to be Terrence Shannon Jr. You're probably going to have to give him up. That hurts. I think TJ, he's still a really good player. I think he's had some injury issues, and those foot injuries can be really difficult and tricky. But at the same time, we need a seventh man now. And if you get Ayo Dosunmu, he's probably going to be playing the role you had in mind for Terrence Shannon Jr.
Yeah.
So you're probably looking at adding Terrence Shannon Jr.'s 2.6 million with Rob's 6.5. That gets you to just around 9.2 million in salary match for Ayo's 7.5 million. So we can go ahead and take Rob Dillingham and TJ off the board. Now, there's probably going to be some draft compensation involved here. The Timberwolves have 2 second-round picks that are honestly probably a throwaway. There's not a chance that the Wolves are selecting 3 rookies. We also have a first-round pick. I view those second-round picks as just cannon fodder this year. We're not going to use them. They're probably going to become cash considerations if we can't get off of them. So the other option is if the Bulls are trying to keep Ayo, and this is where I have some pause, you're probably going to have to offer up a pick swap, maybe 2028 pick swap, to get the Bulls to be like, all right, you could probably lottery protect it, but the Bulls are probably going to need some incentive to get off Ayo. And
Yeah.
it's likely going to cost that Terrence Shannon Jr., Rob Dillingham, the second round picks, and you might have to offer up a top 4 protected pick swap. That would essentially take us out of a future Giannis trade if you give up that pick swap flexibility. But I'm trying to be realistic on the value. It's you're gonna. I get he's an expiring contract, but he's a good player that's indicated he wants to stay in Chicago. So phenomenal fit. If you can get him for TJ, Rob in a couple seconds, I think the deal is signed, sealed, delivered, and Tim Connolly is sprinting to Adam Silver to get that finalized. More than
Absolutely.
likely, and this is probably what kills the deal, is you're probably going to have to do a pick swap.
Yep.
So what are your thoughts on that? What's your take?
So yeah, I actually really like it. And there's gonna be a lot of fans out there that are gonna be super hesitant to even include Rob or TJ in a trade. And I
Yeah.
think if you guys have just been active on social media throughout the Wolves Twitter and even throughout the NBA community, I don't want to say it's pretty safe to say, but it's looking like Rob's time with the Wolves is going to be up here within the next week. It's unfortunate that he didn't work. He was a great prospect. It's just he doesn't fit the timeline. We don't have time to break in a 19-year-old guard who turns the ball over. And there's a lot of people on the other end of the spectrum who are like, we can't trade Terrence Shannon. And while Terrence Shannon had played super well in his playoff stint last year, when he got minutes towards the end of the regular season and was damn near the Summer League MVP this year, um, t- there are some glaring issues with TJ's game too. You already
Yeah.
mentioned the foot injury. Like I don't want to just focus on the negatives. Obviously, he's a powerhouse. He's lightning quick. He can get downhill. But if you're in the NBA and you are going to get downhill, you got to be able to use the right hand. I watched a lot of Big
Mhm.
Ten basketball when TJ was in college and his year at Illinois. I don't know if I've ever seen Terrence Shannon try to finish with the right hand. And I
Yeah.
think a little bit of his playoff success last year was kind of just due to teams not having film on TJ.
Mm.
And that catches up to you in the league. You need to be versatile. You need to be able to finish through contact, finish with both hands. So, kind of where I'm at with it is if you're the Wolves and you're in a win now role, and like you said, you're missing the seventh option, you're missing the Nikhil role. Ayo Dosunmu is the perfect fit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So yeah, if in my opinion, Ayo's the guy that we have to we have to go for. There's obviously other trade targets out there that would benefit this team just in different ways than Ayo would. I think Kobe White would benefit us too. So I know that we brought him up earlier, but I think he's going to give us more of a scoring punch, more of an
Yeah.
offensive upside.
Absolutely.
It's yeah, it's just kind of if you're Tim Conley and you're the Wolves, it's what are you prioritizing? Are you prioritizing bench scoring, or are you going to prioritize a hardworking player, or I guess we'll say that a hardworking player who has a high motor, who's willing to do the things that aren't going to show up necessarily in the box score. So I
Yeah.
think that's just kind of what the trade deadline is going to come down to for the Wolves.
Mhm.
I guess is there any other guys like that kind of catch your eye that you think the Wolves
Yeah.
might make a move for, make a call for?
Yeah. So, Kobe White, that's a good bring. I'm happy you brought him up. Before we quick move on from the Bulls guards, I just want to add really quick. One of the main reasons why I like AO is the flexibility to re-sign him.
Yeah.
If you make that move, TJ and Rob, you have almost 35 million in cap space under that second apron next year. That is plenty to fill out the roster with a couple minimums. You can use your full almost 6 million taxpayer exception. So that's another contributor you can pick up in free agency, and you have plenty left over to sign AO. to, a 15 to $20 million deal. And that goes for Kobe White too. So the one hesitation I have for Kobe White before we move on from him is, can you get him for 20 mil, 21 mil? If he's going to go for more than 20 mil, you're looking at a rental, and it's probably going to also cost you the pick swap I talked about in Ayo. So not only are you going to forego your flexibility to go make a run at Giannis this summer, but it's for a rental. And I really struggle to see Kobe just because of those variables. You're giving up flexibility to go after Giannis. And if you're only going to have about 18 to 21 and 22 million is pushing it to sign him. I mean, you're talking about an expensive rental that impacts your flexibility this summer. So that's my concern. I love Kobe White. Don't take that as Tim is against Kobe White. I would love nothing more than to replace Mike Conley in the lineup with Kobe, a 20 points a game scorer. There's just some logistics that we have to think about long-term. We have to get these margin moves right. We have so much limited cap space and picks that we have to get these moves right. We can't ship them all out when it's 24 for a guy that's a rental. Okay, so with that off my chest, there are a couple more options. We started the podcast talking about trade season. The Kings made a move last night, a 3-way deal with Chicago, Cleveland, and the Kings. So a name that I actually tweeted out yesterday saying is impossible, or it's not going to happen, is Malik Monk. Well, because of the move where the Kings open up roster spots, Malik Monk is now a feasible option. So if you want to go ahead and if you want to put up that spreadsheet again, I'm going to go over some Malik Monk here. 1 second here. We're going to get back one moment.
I guess while you're pulling that up real quick, this is a great time. Today's episode is brought to you guys by SeatGeek, so shout out to SeatGeek.
What's up, Minnesota fans? Many of you know that I help fans get tickets into games, and now I'm giving you an opportunity to get tickets to any sporting event you want, not just basketball. We're talking football. We're talking hockey. We're talking soccer, man. Any sporting event that's in town, or maybe it's a concert. All you have to do is use my promo code, TheDailyWolves, all caps, on SeatGeek. That's right. I partnered with the SeatGeek app. You can download it on iOS or Android devices. You can find it on your web browser at SeatGeek.com. Check it out today. Enter my promo code, TheDailyWolves, and get $20 off your first order.
All right. Big shout out to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's episode. And back to what you were saying about Malik Monk.
Yeah. So Malik Monk is somebody that is on kind of a bloated contract. He has some defensive issues. He's got some juice offensively. He's having a down year. And those red flags, the defense and the bloated contract, that's going to be why he's acquirable for the package that we have. And what I'm talking about is, a Mike Conley, Rob Dillingham, who's a depressed asset, and then a flyer on a Leonard Miller. Because the Kings made that move, they now have open roster spots to be able to accept 2 additional contracts in a 3-for-1 type move. 3-for-1s are usually very rare. But now the conditions are there where they could theoretically accept that offer from the Wolves. So let's do that. Let's get rid of Mike and his 10.7, and let's get rid of Leonard Miller. And you could probably sweeten the deal with those 2 second-round picks. As I mentioned, they're pretty inconsequential for Minnesota. So that move would leave Minnesota with 12 roster spots after getting Malik Monk in. Now, one little nugget is, okay, we have 4.3 million in space. We can sign a veteran minimum, and a veteran minimum is going to be prorated based on the league date. So what that means is the league starts on October 21st, and each day that passes, that proration cuts into it. It's about $13,000 a day. So as of today, on February 1st, a league minimum is going to be around $900,000. So we can afford to maybe guarantee a Johnny Juzang and get up to that immediate 13 roster spots that's required by NBA compliance. So if you do that, you guarantee him, you put $900,000 here, we still have plenty of space to fill out the roster and get to, a 14 legal roster. So Malik Monk, because he has all that scoring juice, he's somebody that if you're going to play him over Mike Conley, he's going to really impact and give you more bankability off the bench for offense. Now, I'm not 100% sold on Malik, but there's a couple variables here I wanted to talk about on why acquiring his contract could be beneficial. So next year he's owed $20 million, and the year after $21 million. Let's say we get him and he's, pedestrian, he's volatile, and maybe it's not the best move. All of a sudden we have a $20 million contract you could use as a filler with Julius Randle, who makes $33 million next year, and you're up to about that $54 million in max contract space. Add in, we have 2 pick swaps available this summer, and we have 2 tradable firsts. So now you can really go hunting and try to bring in an impact player. You have the salary match with Malik Monk. Secondly, with Malik Monk, if he's, pretty good, I think we can realistically afford him next year. So this $20 million here, if you put that in for next year, we would have about $14.5 million left. It'd be tight, but we can afford to bring in our draft pick. Again, we have a first round pick, which is probably going to be around 2.6 to 2.8 million to sign based on where we fall. And then from there, we could fill out the roster with minimums. Fortunately, we have no key players that are up for a contract. So you're talking about re-signing a Bones. I can't imagine Jalen Clark goes for anything more than a 2-year, $6 million, 2-year, $8 million. And so you can go ahead and start filling out the roster. It's tight. You can only probably have 14 players on the roster and still be legal. But you can make it work. And then the final option with Malik Monk is, let's say you finally decide to pivot towards Ant, Jaden McDaniels, and Naz Reid. Who's going to bring the juice off the bench? So Malik Monk gives you kind of that 6-man where he's been thriving in that role in Sacramento, except for this year, where he gives you that juice that you lose by maybe pivoting Randall for someone else. And now you have that juice out of a 6-man player. You can promote Naz to the starting lineup and kind of pivot and reshape that roster around that trio. So because Malik Monk gives you some options, even if he doesn't really work out, and because he'd really only be replacing Mike Conley in the lineup, and because he's a bloated contract and an offense-only player, I think he's actually realistic for a Mike Conley plus Rob Dillingham package. I see that package go out all the time, but the first question I have is, why would the other team accept that? The Kings, they would actually look at Rob Dillingham maybe as a plus. Also, they're just starting a rebuild. They don't have that many picks. They might look at Leonard Miller and be like, dude, this guy's 6'11". He can handle in transition. He's a stretch 4 with some upside. He's only 21. There's not many teams that he'd have value for, but the Kings are one of them. They are one of those teams that would be intrigued by a Leonard Miller. So because Malik Monk is both realistic for the packages and contracts we have to offer, and there's some optionality you get off of it, even if he's bad, it's kind of an intriguing deal where I think you could realistically see that happening.
Yeah. And so I just want to, we got to give the fans what they want here. So you made the point of Malik Monk and Julius's contract coming out to be, what was it, like 54 million, or was it 45 million? One of the two.
Yeah, it's just a hair under. Next year, it's a hair under 54 million. So right in that max contract space.
So with you said having the matching salaries, that does open up the possibility for the Wolves to go big game hunting, while keeping the core of Ant, Naz, and Jaden all intact. So the reason that the trade deadline has been halted this year is because of one man. and that man is Giannis. And the Wolves' name has been flirted with, or has been thrown into the mix with the Giannis Antetokounmpo, along with the Heat, along with the Knicks. You're starting to see the Blazers emerge a little bit. So, if for some reason that Giannis does not get traded this offseason, which if you are the Bucks, I think realistically it would make sense to hold on to Giannis. You're going to get a bigger package in the offseason. The only downfall for that is he's your franchise guy. He's the best player that has ever played for your franchise. And yes, for all you old heads, he is better than Kareem was when he was a Buck. I need to get that off my chest. But it just kind of comes down to, what does Giannis want? Is it more important for him to get the Supermax and get traded this offseason so he can sign it with whoever he gets moved to, or maybe wait it out? And if you're Giannis, you can have, how do I say this? You have um a more set roster, I guess you could say, with pieces around that whatever team you get traded to isn't going to have to move, or isn't going to have to move those significant pieces to acquire you in a trade. So, if Giannis does not get moved this offseason, what do you think the likelihood of the Wolves possibly making a splash and landing Giannis would be?
Yeah, you know what? This is a souped up version of Kevin Durant from last year.
Yeah.
I have very little faith that he's going to get dealt by the deadline. If you're Milwaukee, I mean, the guy's hurt. You can easily shut him down. You can still tank, even with him on the roster. Um, I don't think it makes any sense for them to move him, especially when the main suitors that are on Giannis's list, that's Minnesota, which I cannot believe are on his list. What world do we live in? Um, but Minnesota, Miami, New York. I'm not sure if Golden State's on his list, but those three teams, they can offer substantially more in the summer. Minnesota, we have 2 tradable firsts. We can trade our 2026 pick at the draft. And then once the new league year starts, so we can essentially select for the Bucks, and then finalize a trade on July 1st, we would have a 2033 first round pick. That could be a really attractive pick to the Bucks. Yeah, it's far out, but theoretically it could be after Ant, an unprotected Timberwolves pick after Ant. So I think a Giannis to Minnesota, it's going to resemble a lot of the steam from Kevin Durant. I think all these teams are laying groundwork. I don't think they're actually going to push something over the finish line. I think all the groundwork and the logistics of what we have to do, who do we have to liquidate, what's the gauge on this guy, all that's happening right now, but no deal is going to go through. It's all just going to build momentum for the summer, where people are going to return to those conversations after the playoffs. What if, Jaden goes off and he's scores 21 points per game in the playoffs, and the Wolves are like, sorry, we're going to keep Jaden. So there's just a lot of logistics that need to go down, and I think we're just seeing the steam from that being worked through. But it's a fun thing to talk about. Whenever you can assemble 2 top 5 players in the sport, it's a fun thing to talk about.
Absolutely. And I think just kind of you said it was kind of like Kevin Durant-esque. Like, there's just so much, because like if you're an NBA team and you're competing, you don't, like you said in the beginning of the episode, you don't want to be in the second apron for longer than you need to be. And that's kind of where we found ourselves before extending Julius. When we had Cat, we were in the second apron for, was it 2 years? And then we made the trade.
Yeah, 2 years.
Yep. So you don't want to have to dip into that if you're a contender, unless you are firmly, this is the year, this is our window. And that is what makes it interesting for the Wolves. I guess realistically, kind of before we head out today, I guess my last thing that I wanted to say about Giannis is kind of like what you said. It would be like, just from like our point of view, from like covering the Wolves, to be awesome, man. It would be so cool to have 2 top league, one of the greatest players of all time in Giannis. If he could come to Minnesota, imagine he wins 1 or 2 more rings, and we get to see a player in a Minnesota Timberwolves uniform get talked about as a top 10 player of all time, well Ant slowly creeping his way into that too. Like that would be so awesome. But
Yeah.
like you said, it kind of just comes down to the variables in the postseason because the Wolves are just a different team in the postseason. Like
Yeah.
I really hate when fans and even some media members talk about it just looks like the Wolves don't care in the regular season. But there's some truth to that. You come out 3 nights ago and you play OKC and it looked like it was game 7 intensity. And then the first half of that Grizzlies game, you were like, dude, this is not the same team. So it is really going to be interesting going into the offseason, assuming Giannis does not get dealt at the deadline. Is there anything else that you wanted to touch on, kind of wanted to cover before we wrap up today's episode?
Yeah, just on one more thing on Giannis. If it happens, it's going to be complicated, guys. I mean, the reason why I think it happens in the offseason, if it happens for Minnesota, is they have to liquidate guys on their roster. They have to go liquidate Julius Randle. They have to go liquidate Rudy Gobert, try to get more first-round picks. All that stuff is way easier to do in the summer when you don't have to live by the roster compliance standards of having at least 13 minimum. And you can only have 13 NBA contracts for 2 weeks total. So I say that to mean I don't see that all that liquidation happening mid-season. That's a massive thing to do to a locker room. But if they can start finding the right deals when there aren't those compliance rules in effect, and they can start, shipping guys out here, maybe Rudy there for a couple picks and some intriguing guys, Julius there for a couple intriguing guys. Whatever happens, it's probably going to be a multi-trade or just like a massive 5-6 team trade if Giannis comes to Minnesota. It's going to be Looney Tunes if that happens. Literally crazier than any trade machine that you've seen on Twitter or wherever you get your trade ideas from. So just keep that in mind. So many logistics and so many things need to go right for Giannis to come to Minnesota. I'm not saying it's impossible, but what I am saying is if it's going to happen, it's just far more feasible in the offseason.
Absolutely. I really appreciate having you on today, Tim. I hope that all our listeners have been enlightened, learned a little bit just about how some of the behind the scenes stuff works in the NBA with salary cap, just contracts, and maybe just opened up a completely new door of thinking for you guys. So, yeah, if you guys want to see more of this stuff, make sure to go follow Tim on Twitter. He's always posting the mock trades. That's at Tim Garrison MN on X. So go shoot him a follow. But as always, guys, great having you on today, Tim. And yeah, go Wolves.
Thanks for having me. Happy trade deadline week.